too slow. Go to hell! It's over! You shall die!
Hello friends, Clage back with another Punishing Grey Raven guide today, and after nearly a year of waiting, anticipation, and excitement, I finally get to talk about Devil May Cry in Punishing Grey Raven. Today we're going to be going over how to pilot the Alpha and the Omega, the storm that is approaching, and the number one father of the year, Vergil. Vergil arrives as our newest physical, I say with an asterisk, attacker, but in reality, his main focus is going to be the Ultima / elemental effect. This guide's going to be a good bit different from my usual fare because not only are these the first PGR characters to be focused almost entirely on their elemental effect and not their main elemental damage, this is Devil May Cry. There is much, much more to these characters than optimizing meta rotations, maximizing scores in Warzone and Pain Cage. Devil May Cry is a series that revolves around one main concept, and that is style. This is a series that pioneered the style meter in fast-paced action games. It is not an exaggeration for me to tell you that PGR would not exist in its current form had Devil May Cry not paved the way for this style of action game to become mainstream in the gaming industry. So, in this guide, I'm still going to teach you about all the nerdy, finer optimizations, how to get the most out of your rotations for Warzone, how to burst down bosses in Pain Cage, all the combat details you would expect in my guides as per usual. But Vergil has an especially massive kit that is very robust, has a massive amount of options, and a lot to go over at his disposal. So, I'm going to be spending a good amount of time when we get to the combat demonstration going over every single move and option Vergil has, no matter how relevant it is or is not to the meta aspect of playing the character. I want to teach you all how this entire kit interacts with each other, how you can understand every aspect of Vergil's options and his moves available to you, because I want you to not only be able to perform tight rotations and do well on your leaderboard weekly modes, I want you to be able to style. I want you to be able to create awesome free-flowing combos that you can record and show off to your friends. I want you to go into random boss fights and make them look silly with the power of double arms, with the power of a Sin Devil trigger. So this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to look at these characters a lot more broadly than we normally will because this is the biggest moment in Punishing Grey Raven history. Unquestionably, this is the biggest moment in this game's history. So many of you players who are brand new are here because these characters are in the game now. You can play them within this mobile game, by the way, with almost their entire movesets lovingly ported over, which in and of itself is an incredible feat, and I cannot applaud Curl Games enough for the absolute amount of love, care, and finer details they have put into Dante and Vergil and making them work within the Punishing Grey Raven engine. It is utterly impressive what they have done. I had high expectations for this collab going in. They've somehow been exceeded, and that's wild and a wonderful surprise to have happen. So I know many of you are here just kind of getting used to the game. You're still learning. You're still getting your feet wet. Your accounts are very, very new. So this guide is going to not only be for the longtime players, the meta grinders who watch my channel. This is for all of you new players to help you better learn how to use these characters, how you can interact with their kits, and what they have available. So very different guide. It's going to be really long. If you've never been on this channel, I talk too much. My guides are very long. I'm very, very verbose because I believe teaching every little finer detail helps people better understand not only how to do rotations and how to get the most out of these characters from a meta perspective, but it helps give people new perspective and possibly help improve existing rotations, improve existing strategies. The more knowledge this community has at its disposal, the better chance we have of finding out new things and improving the overall gameplay. And to me, that's always one of the coolest parts about having a community in a specific game or in a specific genre. So, before we get into the combat demonstration, which is going to be oh so long, we're going to go over this usual stuff you would expect in my guides. I will talk about Vergil's evolutions, his memory builds, what his weapon options are, and his unique netherworld arms at what we in Punishing Grey Raven call cubs or pets. And of course, we'll talk about pull and investment recommendations, all that good stuff. So let's jump into the usual fare of my guide and go through each individual talking point, and we will start with evolutions. So at S5, using either of Vergil's ults, either to go into Sin Devil Trigger or using Judgment Cut End, will trigger QTEs. This is the S5 standard. All characters always get this. At double S, which you will automatically get if you are unaware, you haven't checked out how you pull Vergil yet, the first copy of Vergil you pull from the gacha, you will automatically get a second for free. These characters do not have Phantom Pain Cage shards, so you won't be able to get them to double S that way, but you don't have to. You just get a free copy. So if you pull a copy of Vergil, if you have the character, you have him at double S. So this will be your base standard. But at double S, Vergil will restore 3 Devil Souls. Those are the white orbs when he is brought onto the field. Vergil also gains extra crit damage when he is in his Sin Devil Trigger form, and after casting his ultimate and exiting the battlefield, he will launch an attack at nearby enemies once every 2 seconds, dealing physical damage. This is very similar to like Alisa Echo leaving Cecily on the field, or Selena's clones that come on the field after she leaves. Very similar aspect. Basically, once Vergil leaves the field, he'll send some shadow clones out. They'll do some free damage for you. At double S3, the doppelganger that comes out when Vergil goes into Sin Devil Trigger will now do some extra damage. And after Judgment Cut has been cast, the QTE for Vergil for the rest of the battle will have increased damage. It is an increase of 1,000%. So, from a meta perspective, this is very important because it means we want to get Vergil on the field and have him do an ultimate ASAP, because that means for the rest of the fight, his QTE is doing notably more damage, and that is not a small boost to its overall effectiveness. At triple S, each Judgment Cut endpoint will increase the ultimate's base damage, and Judgment Cut End will now deal additional Ultima / damage per True Will consumed. We'll talk about True Will and Ultima / when we get to that part of the guide and the rotations. I am basically going to be including the entire Ultima / team guide within the confines of this guide. So if you have been looking for Ultima / information, you want to learn how to maximize that, that will be later in the guide. I will go over the entirety of how Ultima / works with this character and with the team writ large. At triple S3, 6, and plus, ultimates are going to gain 30% extra damage, as well as anytime Judgment Cut End uses True Will, it will also gain 30% extra damage. Vergil's basic attacks, his basic Judgment Cut, not the actual ultimate, but his flash Iaido draw Judgment Cut, and the follow-up using True Will all gain 50% extra damage, and at triple S plus, when Vergil is in Sin Devil Trigger form, he will gain extra bonus damage as well. So that gets through all the evolutions. Let's talk about memories for Vergil. So, as a collaboration character, Vergil does not have a signature memory set. They do not do signature memory sets for collab characters. So there are going to be 2 main options to work with. The base set that you can basically put on, set it, and forget it is going to be 4-piece Patton, and then 2-piece Cotty, harmonized to 4-piece Cotty if you have his 6-star weapon. This will basically work for anything you're going to be using Vergil for, whether it is physical damage or whether it is Ultima /, which of course is going to be his main focus if you are worried about the meta perspective. There is one alternate memory set we can build. This will be for Phantom Pain Cage, and yes, this will matter because we will be getting Ultima / weak Phantom Pain Cage bosses in the future, but to do that, what we are going to swap to is we are going to swap to Frederick instead of Cotty, and we are going to harmonize to 4-piece Frederick if you have Vergil's 6-star weapon. The dodges will allow us to do higher burst damage while sacrificing the ability to do a double ult rotation. This makes sense for Phantom Pain Cage because we're trying to burst down bosses as fast as possible. So this is an option for that when those bosses do become available. As for resonances, Vergil is a physical character, so you are going to want attack 15, crit 15 up top for all of these. And on the lower part, you're going to want to resonate signature move. This will be the same for both sets, regardless if you are doing the Kadi set or if you are doing the Frederick set. As for hypertuning, as always, you want to hypertune the bottom row first for the attack bonuses, and then the top row second for the other bonuses. So pretty straightforward on the memory front. This is about all you will need. If you want to be very simple with it, just build the 4-piece Patton, 4-piece Kadi, and call it good. As for weapons, Vergil is not technically locked behind his 6-star weapon. However, this comes with some serious caveats that I need to highlight first and foremost. So, obviously, the 5-star weapon does not cause any of Vergil's rotations to not work. There is no unique aspect of the Yamato itself that will change Vergil's rotation, so to speak. But there are two big things going on here. One, you do lose a boatload of damage from the 5-star going to the 6-star weapon. 30% more crit damage on a physical character is very, very noticeable. And triggering Matrix when it's not on cooldown once you go into your Sin Devil trigger form is very, very nice. But most importantly, this doubles the amount of Judgment Cut in points you get as you accumulate stacks when we are doing combat. From a meta perspective, this is incredibly important. This speeds up Vergil's ability to get more stacks, and the more stacks we have, the more his ultimate is going to do. And Vergil's ultimate is the main damage part of his kit. His entire meta perspective is getting into Sin Devil Trigger, getting to Judgment Cut End as fast as you can with as many stacks available, and doing a big old chunk of burst damage. But in addition, of course, being able to harmonize and have weapon resonances is very, very important for this character. Deadline timing is especially good on Vergil. So having the 6-star weapon is going to be a notable increase in performance and overall damage for the character. But the big caveat I need to talk about with the weapons is that these count as part of the collab. Normally, what I will tell you is that if you can't afford a weapon right now and it doesn't absolutely lock the character out of doing their normal rotations, their normal gameplay, you can always kick the can down the road, right? Because standard PGR weapons are always at 80% rate up. No matter what you're doing, no matter what's going on, it's 80% rate up. It stays that way permanently. The weapons for the Devil May Cry characters work exactly the same. They have the same weapon gotcha rules. They are an 80% rate up. If you whiff on the 80%, your next 6-star weapon is guaranteed to be the weapon you selected. But when the collab is over, these weapons are gone. They are gone permanently. You cannot pull them once the collaboration ends. So, if you are intending to build Vergil and you care about the Ultima Slash team doing well in Ultima Slash meta stages, I highly, highly recommend you get the Yamato before the collaboration ends, because if you do not, you can't go back and get it later. If you are free to play, if you are brand new, if you are not worried about meta aspects, you just want to do cool combos, you just want to show off, you want to play Devil May Cry characters in this mobile game that you just picked up, the 5-star sword will hold you over just fine. It will not preclude you from doing any of Vergil's moves, doing any of his cool combos. All that is going to be available. But just keep in mind, this is your only shot for this weapon. I hate to say you should get a weapon based solely on FOMO. That feels very bad to say, but that is the nature of collabs and gacha games, especially one as big as a franchise as Devil May Cry. So just keep in mind, this is your only shot for this weapon. If you have any intention of getting it, just get it done. Don't wait. Don't lose your opportunity, because once it's gone, bucko. As for actual resonances, as mentioned, deadline timing is your number one priority. Deadline timing is very, very important for Vergil, both for his physical rotation and the Ultima Slash rotations. It makes them speed up notably, and it makes the best possible Ultima Slash rotation much smoother to work with. If you were going to ball out and put extra resonances on after deadline timing, I would recommend Glorious Afterglow second, since there will be 3 pings getting used fairly regularly, and then you can choose between Incandescence and Matrix Lightning depending on what makes the most sense for the type of fight you are going into. And of course, Harmonization on a 6-star weapon, always very, very, very nice to have, very useful. So if you can afford it at all, definitely pick up Yamato when you can. Again, just because this is our only shot to get it, I have to recommend it extremely highly, but you don't need it to play the character, so just keep that in mind. As for Vergil's Netherworld arm, aka the Cub, these are very unique for the Devil May Cry characters. So just like all Cubs, they have the various passive skills you get to equip and level up if you have the Cub equipped. So getting some bonus on Vergil's ultimates, getting the extra physical damage bonus, all that good stuff is quite nice. However, unlike a lot of normal Cubs for PGR characters, the Mirage blades are available to use no matter what. If you have no Cub equipped on Vergil, you can still use the active skills of the Mirage blade because it is part of his innate Devil May Cry kit. The big difference is if you don't have the Cub, you won't obviously be able to equip the passive, so you won't get these bonuses, and the actual damage of the active skills will basically be nothing. It will literally be like double-digit damage, so it would effectively do nothing in terms of meaningful damage. But it does mean that you do not have to pull the Cub in any way, shape, or form to be able to utilize the cool moves you get with the Cubs for both Dante and Vergil. So, if you can't afford it, this is absolutely the first thing you should omit from trying to roll. But if you can't afford to go get the Cub, you have the extra collab tickets available. It is definitely worth picking up. These are some nice damage bonuses. I will say the one thing that the Cub does not have that most normal Cubs do, there is no innate grouping on Vergil's Cub. He doesn't really need it. He has a lot of ways to circumvent situations where we would normally need and or want grouping on the Cub, but having the damage bonuses and doing some actual damage with the skills is nice to have. So if you have the extra tickets, go ahead and pick it up, but the Cub is absolutely extremely optional. Again, I will mention the same caveat I mentioned with the weapon. Once the Cub is gone, it's gone. There is no way to get it afterwards. We should assume that the Devil May Cry collab is a one-time thing. Is there a chance somewhere in the future that Capcom decides to re-up with Kuro and we get a rerun of this collab? Yes, it is possible. I would consider it highly, highly unlikely, and it is best to go into this entire patch and this entire setup assuming that this is your only shot for everything. The characters, their weapons, and their Cubs. If you want it, get it now while you have time. So, as for my pull and investment recommendations, so normally this is where I would talk about how a new S rank is super important and you should always try and pull a new S rank because trying to get one later is a pain in the butt and is always going to cost you more cards in the long run or is just going to be really annoying for the hole in your team. This is the Devil May Cry patch. Let's be real here. If you like Devil May Cry, if you started playing PGR for the Devil May Cry collab, you're pulling Vergil. You're probably pulling both brothers. That you don't need a random nerd on the internet from YouTube telling you, well, yes, you should absolutely pull this Ultima Slash character. A single copy of Vergil gets you to double S automatically. If you go and get a second copy, you are already up to double S3 in terms of evolutions, and you're not that far from getting to triple S right there. So, more important than any of this, again, is assume this is your only shot. If you want Vergil, even if you just want the collection aspect and you are not worried about being the Ultima Slash meta, you're not worried about trying to stay on top of the leaderboard, this is your shot. If you want to pull Vergil now, get it done, thank me later. Again, you don't need my advice on this. You already know if you're pulling this character or not. So let's talk about the actual investment stuff that I would recommend. So, as I said, pulling a single copy gets you to double S. You don't have to worry about that. That is the base level. You are getting a double S Vergil no matter what you do. The only way you don't is if you somehow don't click the claim free copy button on the gacha when you pull your first copy. So do make sure you do that. After you have pulled your first copy of Vergil, my next recommendation highly is going to be the Yamato. Again, does not lock him out of his rotations, but is our only shot to get it. having harmonization and weapon resonances does improve his output vastly, especially for the Ultima Slash team. Once you have the Yamato, I would prioritize getting your second copy of Vergil to go to double S3, and a third copy if you want to go to triple S. Triple S is a notable damage buff for this character. It will make a big difference in your Ultima Slash output. And if you are here for Devil May Cry to totally ball out, take your Vergil and Dante to triple S and beyond, then by all means, go nuts. This is your chance to do it. After all of that, the Cub is far and away the lowest priority because, again, even without the Cub equipped, you can still use Cub Skills. Very unique and interesting aspect of the Devil May Cry characters. So, there is my investment recommendations. There is the builds and options. As for the teams themselves, let me go ahead and go into the training mode stage because we're going to be going here anyway for combat demonstration. But Vergil's team will be the same no matter how you slice it. Whether you're running the physical team or the Ultima Slash team, you are going to have Alisa as your starter. Of course, she is a great starter for the physical and Ultima Slash teams because her yellow orb launches her into the enemies, which allows your bring in to be a guaranteed hit and start off your rotations really nicely. Han Ying will serve as Vergil's tank. Her memory builds do not change with Vergil regardless of whether you're doing physical or Ultima Slash. Neither does Echoes. You will keep your same 4-piece Signa, 4-piece Da Vinci on her. She is the main support. And then Vergil, of course, will come in, use his memory build, and go from there. So, depending on the investment of your Han Ying, who you have on what color for who you want to bring in first will alternate. For most players, if your Han Ying is already built, you're going to want Han Ying on yellow so that you can have her ping her QTE out the gate and immediately get the tank class passive on the enemy. And Vergil will be on the blue color, who you will bring in first to start your rotation for the Ultima Slash team and for the physical aspect of the team. So there is your team loadout. That covers everything for the basic builds and for what we do to get Vergil equipped and online. And now it's time to get to what is going to be probably the longest combat explanation I have ever done in any of these guides. So get yourself a beverage, get yourself a snack, and get comfortable. We have a whole lot to talk about for how to play Vergil on the field because this kit is vast, it is robust, and there are a lot of fun little intricacies that I've got to go over. So let's go ahead, jump into training mode, and I will start teaching you about this man's very robust kit. Alright, so this combat demonstration is going to be notably different from my other guides. Rather than simply go over and explain which parts of Vergil's kit are key to his rotations and which ones are ones you would mostly ignore while trying to optimize the character for Warzone and Pain Cage, we're going over every single aspect of what is easily the most complex kit we've seen in PGR yet. The main chunk of this explanation is going to be showing you how every option Vergil has works, how you can make them flow together, and some general tips, tricks, and ideas you can apply to play the character however you so desire. For the first part of this explanation, I'm going to be approaching this from the angle knowing that most of you, many of you, are brand new players to PGR. You're still learning the game, you're still learning the engine, all that good stuff, and many of you are here because of Devil May Cry. And right now, you're not terribly concerned with major optimizations or scoring as high as you possibly can in Warzone and Pain Cage. You just want to learn how to play the character, do cool stuff, and style on your enemies within Punishing Gray Raven. So I'm going to be approaching this part of the explanation to show you all every part of the kit, how you can use it, and to help you better understand what the entire nature of Vergil's options are so you can start making up your own routes, making up your own combos, and doing all kinds of cool stuff with the character. For those of you who are PGR veterans or regulars of my channel who are here to learn about all the finer details, the hyper optimizations to help you reach maximum scores in Warzone and Pain Cage, those will be here. As always, I will be going over his physical rotation in detail. I will be going over the entirety of Ultima Slash, both the mechanic itself, the entire team rotation, and how it works in its own section of the guide. But for the combat explanation, we're talking about the character writ large. I'm not going to focus in on skills that only apply to the rotations. We're going to be talking about the whole thing. So this is going to be very long. It's going to be very verbose. And Stick with me. I promise I will break this all down in a way that's understandable, or at least I'm going to try my best. This is a really, really complex kit, but I think once we break it down piece by piece, it all makes a lot of sense and honestly feels pretty intuitive once you get going with it. So, before we start going into the super finer details, let's just go over all the base options Vergil has as a character. So, we're going to start with the orbs. As you can see, Vergil has 5 different orb types, 4 of which are always available at all times. So, the bottom 4 orbs are dedicated orbs for Vergil's jump command, and then his 3 primary armaments, the Yamato, the Mirage Edge, and the Beowulf gauntlets, respectively. So let's go through these piece by piece first. The jump orb is very simple. This is a unique mechanic for us. We do not have dedicated jump buttons in PGR, but if you've played DMC, you know jumping is an absolute key core component of that game, both for the platforming and within combat. So tapping the jump button or tapping the jump orb, if you're playing on mouse and keyboard or on mobile, will send Vergil airborne. Pretty straightforward. It's a jump. I don't think I need to explain this one too hard. Now, in a lot of versions of Devil May Cry and other high-end action games, oftentimes you have access to a double jump. We do not have that in this version. PGR does not have a double jump for Vergil and Dante. What it does have is, if you tap the jump button again while airborne, you will do a plunge attack. So if I'm airborne, tap the jump button, we get a version of Helm Splitter while holding the Yamato. This attack will change based on what weapon you have equipped, but this is a universal property. If you hit the jump button in midair, you are going to do some kind of plunge attack that sends you back down to the ground and will most likely spike your opponent onto the ground for more juggles. The other 3 orbs are the primary devil arms for Vergil. So red is the Yamato, blue the Mirage Edge, yellow the Beowulf gauntlets. You can swap armaments at any time by tapping the orb of your choice. This does not consume any resources whatsoever. So I can go to the Mirage Edge, to the gauntlets, back to the Yamato, as much as I want. As long as I'm only hitting this one time, you can do this equip motion whenever and however you like. It's important to note, there is not a single animation lock or anything that precludes you from swapping equipment. So, just for example, if I start doing the basic attack string with the gauntlets, I can switch whenever I want. I can be deep into the whole string, swap, and then as soon as this attack ends, I'm going to swap to the Mirage Edge. This is probably the single most tricky component you're going to want to focus learning on when you're first starting out, if your goal is to make cool combos, show cool routes, and style with the character. This not being tied to any kind of cooldown or animation lag or lockout means this is as freeform as it gets in Punishing Grey Raven. Being able to swap your weapon on the fly for no resource cost is not something characters get in this game. This is unique to the DMC characters. And learning how to do this for different, strings, combos, and varying up your attacks is going to be probably the single best way you can come up with really cool routes and do some really fun styling. This, again, no lockout whatsoever. This is even something you can do during time stop. So if you are in the middle of an ultimate where the clock is stopped and all animation is frozen, other than the actual ultimate playing out, you can still swap equipment during that. It's perfectly viable to do so. So, with that said, that covers his 3 bottom orbs. The white orbs above here are known as Vergil's Devil Souls. These are very similar to other characters we have, like Han Ying, like other modern attackers who have a version of a white orb that gets consumed when you use the actual skills of the colored orbs, and Vergil works exactly the same way. Certain skills will consume a set number of the Devil Soul orbs to both enhance the skill itself, oftentimes giving it either more hits or more damage or some kind of unique property, but more importantly, consuming these are what are going to build Vergil's various core passive gauges. The core passive gauge sits down here. If you're new to PGR, every character has some form of a core passive gauge, and you can basically think of this as kind of the glue for a character's kit. Every character has some kind of core passive that you build up or utilize as a mechanic in their combat flow to perform various skills or go into various modes, all sorts of other stuff. Vergil has actually a pretty straightforward and simple core passive. It's actually probably the only part of his entire kit that is straightforward. Very simply, the bottom bar here that is shaped like the weapon, it's going to change shape depending on which weapon you have equipped, but this is a universal gauge. Basically, this is showing how many Sin Devil Trigger points you have built up. Certain attacks will fill this gauge a certain amount, and once it's completely full, you will have access to activating Vergil's Devil Trigger and going into Sin Devil Trigger mode. This is very easy to pick up with because even if you switch weapons, nothing changes about this gauge other than the shape. So if I use our yellow orb here, this builds up half the core passive gauge, okay? This gauge goes from 0 to 300. That's not listed in any number here. This is a different number. Talk about it in a second. But all you need to know is that once this gauge reaches 300, that's when your Devil Trigger becomes online. So with one use of the yellow orb here, I have built up half a gauge. If I swap equipment, you'll see now the Mirage Edge gauge, also half full. If I swap to the Yamato, also half full. So this gauge persists its amount regardless of when you switch weapons. There is no penalty for swapping weapons. You don't have to build up this gauge individually based on which weapon you have equipped. If you've built up 150 Sin Devil Trigger gauge, you've built it up no matter which weapon you have on. So that's very important to remember and keep track of. The number above the SDT gauge is the Judgment Cut end points. These are stacks that you will build while in Sin Devil Trigger mode. And basically what happens is however many stacks you have when you finally do Judgment Cut End, the actual ultimate that Vergil uses, those stacks will be consumed and they will enhance the damage of his ultimate. So if you are just playing to style, if you are just planning to do cool combos, this gauge really doesn't matter to you. You're not going to care how many Judgment Cut endpoints you have when you cast ultimate. You're going to be focused on doing combos, varying up your attacks, juggling the enemy, and showing cool stylish finishers with his ultimate. So if you're just playing for style, this isn't important. We'll go over how important this is for the rotations in their respective sections, but just know that this number goes up while you're in Devil Trigger form and builds up with certain attacks to enhance the overall damage of his ultimate. The last universal mechanic I want to talk about for Vergil is his dodge. So his dodge has some unique properties. First and foremost, if you are locked onto an enemy and you hold dodge while at neutral, so you're not moving the control stick, you're not pushing any movement keys on keyboard or whatever movement options you have on your platform of choice. If you hold dodge, Vergil will actually do his air trick and teleport to the enemy you are locked on to. This is actually really useful in certain Warzone situations. If you get the Warzone where we have 3 to 6 small enemies roaming around, this is very useful for chasing down one straggler that maybe wandered off into Narnia and going and finishing off that wave. So this is a nice thing to have in the back pocket. Beyond that special mechanic Vergil has, Vergil can also cancel his dodge into unique attacks depending on which weapons he's using. So if we do a dodge with the direction and hit basic attack, you'll see with the Yamato equip, we do the rapid slash through the enemy. I'll go over each unique dodge cancel skill within each weapon so we don't get a bunch of overlap and you don't have to remember which one is which. But just know that these are universal mechanics for Vergil at all times. You can always cancel a directional dodge into basic attack. You can cancel it into skills. And then if you hold dodge while locked on, you're going to air trick over to the opponent. So these are very useful tools to have in the back pocket. And they are going to be very handy if you're trying to style on enemies or if you're fighting multiple enemies and you need to swap targets very quickly. That hold dodge mechanic is going to be very, very useful to you. So now that we've kind of gone over the base kit, we've gone over how Vergil's orbs work, how the core passive gauge works, we're going to talk about the actual weapons themselves and all the things that come with them individually. So let's go ahead and start with the Yamato. So Vergil's default weapon is, of course, his tried and true katana, the Yamato. Vergil will always come on field equipped with the Yamato. No matter what, when you bring Vergil on the field, he will automatically have the Yamato equipped. The red orb will be the one highlighted by your equip choice. This will happen no matter when you bring Vergil on the field or who the prior character was. This is a universal mechanic, so you will always start with the Yamato. So we're going to start breaking down how the Yamato works, and then we'll go to the other two weapons and kind of fill in from there. So let's start with the basic attack string. So the basic attack string with the Yamato is pretty straightforward. Vergil does a bunch of slashes and finishes with a final large slash. This will build some signature energy. You see up in the upper corner, we're slowly building our signature energy gauge. And over time, if you do enough basic attacks, you will eventually build some more Devil Soul Orbs over time. Devil Soul Orbs, like normal PGR orbs, are generated through a variety of means. Basic attacks can build them up. Certain mechanics during combat, such as using certain things during Matrix, can help produce more Devil Soul Orbs. And then other passive effects, such as Vergil's double S passive. When he comes onto the field, he automatically gains 3 extra Devil Soul Orbs. If Vergil is off field, these orbs regenerate over time. And weapon resonances like Deadline Timing will also give you extra orbs and help generate more orbs over time. So the base bones bear attack isn't something you're going to use a ton in base form Yamato, but it is a way to start various combos, and it is there for you to use at your leisure to fill in if you don't have anything better to do. The next part of Vergil's kit is the rapid slash. As I showed prior, if you do a dodge and then proceed to hit the basic attack button, you will go into the rapid slash attack. Now, if you do this out of a dodge, it's not going to build anything. It's going to build very minimal signature energy, and it's going to contribute very little to building up more orbs. But it is an option you have out of his dodge attack, which is important to note because sometimes you might want to reposition, or you might want to chase down an enemy to keep your combo going. All sorts of fun stuff there that lets you keep combos flowing and lets you kind of just keep going whenever you want. Now, since the Yamato is tied to the red orb, we'll talk about how that skill works. Before I go any further, I want to highlight that the Yamato is a Ultima slash damage weapon. All of its damage is going to pop the red numbers, as you see here. That is Ultima slash damage. This is not base physical damage. This is an important difference. If you want to use physical damage with Vergil, that is tied to his Beowulf weapon. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just know that all the damage you're doing with the Yamato equipped is Ultima slash damage, and this is important for his Ultima slash rotation. Before we get into the actual skill, let's talk about some more universal attacks. So, if you do a jump, you will just do a normal jump with the Yamato. There's no attack tied to it. However, if you hold the jump button, you will get Vergil's rising uppercut attack. You don't have to hold this for super long. It comes out fairly quick, but this will launch the enemy and put you airborne. When you're airborne, if you tap basic attack, Vergil has his aerial rave from the Devil May Cry games. You can repeat this as many times as you can juggle the enemy. And of course, if you go into the air and then use the jump button again, you will get the modified helm splitter and plunged back down to the ground. So, just like in the actual Devil May Cry games, Vergil has a lot of options in the air. The Yamato is probably his strongest air weapon just because it has such a long air string to utilize while you are airborne. So, something to utilize if you want to just keep a light enemy juggled and think about how you want to move on to the next bit of your combo or how you're going to swap weapons, stuff like that. But you won't use this particular attack very much if you are focused on the Ultima slash rotations, but it's there and it's something to utilize. Next, let's talk about the actual orb skills. So, if you already have a weapon equipped and you ping its respective orbs, so we already have the Yamato equipped, if I tap my red orb button, Vergil will proceed to do a slash that causes a slow on the enemy and then eventually pulls them inward. This also will build half of the Sin Devil trigger gauge. So this is very important for his rotations because this is one of the fastest ways to get in and out of Sin Devil trigger. Getting into his Devil trigger form quickly is a key component of utilizing the Ultima slash rotation properly, and this skill is one of the easiest ways to do that. I will also note that this is Vergil's bring-in skill, so when you bring him on the field, he is going to automatically do this attack when he first comes on the field. Now, something to note is that that bring-in attack does not consume any Devil Orbs, and therefore it does not build any core passive gauge. So if I run Alisa up here, we're going to bring in Vergil. You'll see he does the slash, No core passive gauge. This does not consume any devil orbs when used as the bring-in attack. So, unlike a lot of PGR characters where their bring-in attack will actually count towards building their core passives or building the gauge that lets them start ultimate, stuff like that, that does not apply to Vergil. So, but this also has some unique mechanics out of it. So, if we do the red orb, cause the slash and create the slow, and then hit basic attack afterwards, you will see Vergil go into the rapid slash. You will also notice that the core passive gauge rapidly filled until it's completely full, and now we have Devil Trigger online. This is one of the single fastest ways to build the core passive gauge for Vergil, full stop. If you want to get to Sin Devil Trigger mode as quickly as humanly possible, bring in Vergil, cast the red orb, hit basic attack, and then you're going to have it. As soon as this animation ends, that bar is going to be filled, and you can go ahead and go into Sin Devil Trigger mode. This is a key skill for rotations, especially the Ultima slash rotation. You'll want to get familiar with using it. It is quite powerful. So, very fast way to build the gauge, and again, slows down the enemy and brings them to you. It's a nice way to group smaller enemies together, so this is a nice skill to have available. Let's see, next. We already talked about jump. Yeah, okay, obviously. The most important one of Vergil's iconic moves is, of course, the basic Judgment Cut. Not his ultimate Judgment Cut in, but if you hold basic attack for any amount of time, you'll see the core passive gauge flash down there, and you will get Judgment Cut. Vergil backs off, does the quick Iaido draw, we see the slashes go around the enemy, and we get the Judgment Cut. This can also be done mid-air, so if I go up in the air and hold, let's do it with a juggle. It'll probably be easier that way. So if we juggle the enemy and I start doing this and then I hold, you can do Judgment Cut in the air. So available as an air juggle, available on the ground. The thing to note about Judgment Cut is that it has a perfect input option. So as you watch, when I hold, you'll see that little flash, and now you see the Yamato gauge with the little lightning arcing off of it. This means Judgment Cut is prepped. As soon as I let go of the basic attack button, Vergil's going to perform Judgment Cut. If you release the button on the exact frame that flash happens, I am almost positive this is a just frame input. If it's not a just frame, it can't be more than like a 2-frame window, which is kind of wild. PGR normally has pretty generous windows for quote-unquote perfect inputs in this game. This is not one of them. This is easily the most difficult technique of Vergil's to pull off in real time, because I'm fairly certain it's close to a just frame. But if you go in and hold basic and release it exactly as the flash happens, you will get an enhanced form of Judgment Cut. So it's probably going to take a few tries, but we'll get there. There it is. See how he doesn't do the back off and do the step back before he does Judgment Cut? It's much faster. It'll build more signature energy, does more damage, has less recovery. So in rotations, this doesn't really have any practical application. You won't be using Judgment Cut to build up the core passive gauge, nor will you be using it to build up towards using his ultimate or generating orbs. It is just a flashy option. This solely exists for you folks that are here and you want to style. You want to go into Trial Simulacrum and you want to show a boss what for. The other cool part about the perfect Judgment Cut is that it can be chained if you can repeat the just frame timing over and over again. Now, what I have found is doing this by just holding basic, releasing it, and then trying to do it with basic attack again is pretty rough. I think it's pretty difficult to do that. So what I would recommend you do is that you can also charge Judgment Cut by holding jump. If you hold jump long enough, same thing. Go down. Cool. Did Judgment Cut by using the jump button. So the way I like to try to chain the perfect Judgment Cuts together is to hold basic for the first one and then try to chain the next ones by doing hold jump, release, hold jump, release. And this is probably going to take me 20 tries because it's live recording, but I'll try to show you what it looks like in practice. So that's a little early. There we go. See? Sick. Slick stuff. I love this. I love that they included this. It has no practicality in traditional PGR modes. If you are in Warzone, you're never going to do this. If you're trying to nuke a Pain Cage boss, you're never going to do this. If you're just playing Devil May Cry PGR and having a good time and styling, use this all the time. It looks so rad, and you feel like a badass when you hit it. I have been playing fighting games competitively for almost 22 years. I have been a speedrunner for 15 years. I have a little bit of experience with just frame inputs. And even after all those years of doing stuff like that, I still get a little mini adrenaline rush by hitting just frame inputs, because that's satisfying. You feel like a god. So I definitely encourage you to practice this just to be able to do it and show off in your combos and your fun style videos, all that kind of stuff. It will take some practice. It is not easy, but the first time you hit like 3 of those in a row, you are going to feel like a god. And that's really, really fun. So, I find the most intuitive way to do one of them is just to hold basic attack, but if you want to chain them together, like I said, try going from basic to jump and vice versa, and that'll kind of help you out. So that more or less covers all of Vergil's options with the Yamato in base form. I'm going to go over what options are available in Devil Trigger form individually, because I think it makes more sense to learn about each weapon first and then go over the Devil Trigger version, because while in Devil Trigger mode, it's not that much different, but there are key things you'll want to know that come online once you activate Send Devil Trigger. So that covers the Yamato. Let's go ahead and talk about the Mirage Edge next. All right, up next, let's talk about the Mirage Edge, which is tied to Vergil's blue orb. So, the Mirage Edge, just like the Yamato, is based entirely around Ultima / damage. The difference with the Mirage Edge is that it's more based around doing higher burstier Ultima / damage, while the Yamato is a little bit faster to build up stacks and build up the core passive gauge. So this is the key weapon for the Ultima / rotation. This is the weapon you're going to want to get very familiar with. You will need to be able to be very effective with the skills on this weapon if you want to maximize the Ultima / rotation. So let's go through everything the Mirage Edge has on offer. So just like the Yamato, we have a basic attack string. If you mass basic attack, you will eventually go into the million stab, and then we'll end with a final thrust that knocks the enemy on its butt. The million stab can also be done out of a dodge, and then mashing the basic attack button and then getting the stab at the end. Pretty straightforward. So this is very similar to the Yamato. You have your basic attack string. It ends in a specific multi-hit attack, and that multi-hit attack can be gotten into quicker by doing a dodge and then mash. Pretty straightforward. Pretty easy to pick up. The first part of the Mirage Edge is very, very simple. The key part of the Mirage Edge is going to be using the actual skill by pinging the blue orb. So when we ping the blue orb, Vergil is going to do a double slash projectile that slowly goes out in front of him and will launch the enemy. So you see there, we use the double slash, we build core passive gauge. This builds up a nice chunk of the core passive gauge when we use it. This is very important, not just by itself. The skill by itself is kind of whatever. It will build your core passive gauge. You do it twice, and you consume orbs to enhance it, you're going to get a full core passive gauge. If you have 3 Devil Soul orbs available, each use of this skill will consume 3. This is exactly the same as doing a 3 ping with a normal character in PGR, so just think of it that way. But the most important aspect of this skill is that after the double slash, if you hold basic, Vergil will go into a charge move. You'll see here the Mirage Edge charges up and flashes. It gets the same electricity arcing off it on the core passive gauge. This skill is super important because this skill is what activates True Slash and builds up sharp reserve stacks. This is how we use the Ultima / rotation. This skill is tantamount to doing the Ultima / rotation properly. It's not terribly hard to do, and the longer you charge it, the more Ultima / stacks you will build. You'll build more and more points of sharp reserve, which get converted into the Ultima / aspect. I'll go into details on that in its own section. For those of you just wanting to learn how the skills work, don't worry about Ultima /. It's not important to you right now. But one more time, if we do this and then hold the button, if you release it immediately, you're going to get a single stack. At level 2, you're going to get 2 stacks. At level 3, you're going to get 4 stacks, and the 4th level is 6 stacks. So if you don't charge it at all, you get 1. Charge it to the first level 2, charge it to third level 4, charge it to the final level, and where the electricity starts arcing off the core passive gauge, 6 stacks. Basically, you'll only ever need to learn how to do this, go into the stance, and as soon as you see Vergil take the stance, release it, he'll throw out the big, wide arcing projectile that will juggle the enemy, build up the slash gauges, and in addition, this will get you to a full core passive gauge and put Devil Trigger online all by itself. So to show you how that looks, I'm going to start from scratch here. So we're going to bring in Vergil. We have no core passive gauge. Cecily's going to juggle the enemy around because that's what Cecily does. This is part of having Echo on your team, which is great when I'm doing combat. It's less great when I'm trying to show you guys how stuff works in a video, but I digress. So if we go ahead, I'm going to do the blue orb. So we equip the Mirage Edge. I'm going to tap the blue orb again to cause the double slash. I'm going to hold basic immediately after. And as soon as I see Vergil go into the stance, I'm going to release it. So we're going to go double slash, hold, release, full core passive gauge, Ultima slash online, Devil Trigger online. This is probably the single most important skill to learn how to handle properly if you are chasing meta strats. If you are trying to score as high as you possibly can in Warzone, or when we get Ultima slash weak Phantom Pain Cage bosses, this is super, super important to learn. It's not hard. It is a very generous window to get the hold basic attack afterwards, but just practice a little bit. This is going to be a key part of your rotation. So have that available. In addition, so just like with the Yamato, if you charge your jump, Vergil will do an arc. I also accidentally did round trip, so why not? We'll talk about that in a moment. But if you go into the air and you mash basic, Vergil will do a single air dash stab into Helm Splitter. The air combo for the Mirage is just that one hit. He does not have a full aerial rave like he does with the Yamato. So oftentimes, if you're just looking to style, you can just go right back down into Helm Splitter and put them back on the floor by tapping jump again. There's not a big, long combo to go with afterwards. So something to keep in mind if you're looking to do some kind of cool styling in the process while you're using the Mirage Edge. The last skill of the Mirage Edge is, of course, what I just talked about, the iconic round trip. If you charge by holding basic attack during any animations and then release, he will throw the Mirage Edge and it will do the round trip skill and stay on the enemy. If you do anything, whether it is a basic attack using the Mirage Edge, if you use the Mirage Edge skill by pinging the blue orb, if you hold the jump button to charge the rising attack, the Mirage Edge will come back to you and immediately cancel out of round trip. So if I hit basic, it immediately comes back. If I do round trip again and I start charging jump, it comes back. Now, what this means is basically once you throw a round trip, you can't do anything with the Mirage Edge at all. You cannot do any attacks or anything whatsoever. However, important aspect about round trip, it does not dissipate if you switch equipment. So you can swap to a different weapon while the round trip is going on and go nuts. For those of you wanting to do stylish stuff, to do cool combos, to show off in Trial of Simulacrum, round trip is going to be one of your best friends because having the Mirage Edge acting autonomously while you switch to other weapons and do cool combos, that's going to be pretty sick. I'm willing to bet you can come up with some fun stuff right now off the top of your head with this ability. So this is another move that for rotations, for the Ultima slash rotation, you're not using this. This is never going to come into play. This is solely here to have fun with, to create cool combos, and to style on your enemies with. So those of you who are new, wanting to show off your brand new built Vergil, I definitely recommend playing around with round trip and then swapping to other weapons and figuring out how to get the most out of those combos. So really cool that they included that. That's a very iconic attack. Huge part of Vergil in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Again, I'm a fighting game player. I'm going to talk about it a lot. What do you want from me? But I think it's really cool that they included this in here, and I'm very, very happy that it's part of the kit. So that pretty much covers the Mirage Edge as a weapon. We'll go into its Devil Trigger options when we get to Devil Trigger, but for now, let's go ahead and move on to the Beowulf Gauntlets. Okay, so the last of Vergil's primary armaments are the Beowulf Gauntlets. So the Beowulf Gauntlets are the only weapon of Vergil's that deals exclusively physical damage. So this will be the weapon we utilize when we do the physical rotation. I will talk about the caveats of the physical rotation when we get to that part of the guide, but just make note that this weapon does not do any Ultima slash damage no matter what you're doing. It is solely physical damage. So let's go through what Beowulf has on offer for us. So just like the other weapons, you have your basic attack string, you mash on basic attack, you go through a full string. This is the slowest of the basic attack strings by a pretty notable margin, but just like the actual Devil May Cry games, you can charge any of these moves at any point by holding down basic. These all have 3 levels of charge, just like the other charge moves. If you hold it for, technically it's 4 levels is what I should actually say, but it's listed as 1, 2, and 3. There is charging and then immediately releasing, and then there's level 1, level 2, and then finally level 3, which has the actual gauge flash with the electricity and glow yellow. So any of these can be charged at any point in time, anywhere in the combo. If you want to go for multi-hits, some of them get extra hits on them. They will obviously all do more damage. The one thing they will not do is they will not build any core passive gauge because they are just the basic attack. You will not ever build the core passive gauge by spamming basic attack, even if you charge it, and it will slightly increase the speed at which you are regaining Devil Soul Orbs if you charge, just because it's doing more hits and more damage. And of course, it's a basic attack, so we're getting signature energy on top of it. As for other attacks Vergil has within the Beowulf moveset, so this is the only equipment where if you tap jump, don't hold it, you still get an attack. So if you tap jump, Vergil does a spinning uppercut that has a hitbox, does a single hit of damage to the enemy. That's very nice to have just for a quick hit. And if you tap jump while in midair, Vergil will do the dive kick, very similar to the moveset from the game. This will spike the enemy and allow you to continue a juggle from there. The other option you have while airborne is to go into basic attack, which will go into the lunar phase skill. This is the multi-hitting flip kick skill. This is also Vergil's attack. If you do a directional dodge and then hit basic attack to cancel that animation, he will go into lunar phase on the ground. Pretty straightforward and simple to use there. The next skill we'll talk about is if you hold jump. So just like holding and charging jump with the Yamato and the Mirage Edge, you can do a charged attack with the jump here. Just like the other Beowulf attacks, it has 4 levels of charge, and at max charge, Vergil will go into a full Shoryu Reppa, just like Kin would. He's a Capcom character. I'm a fighting game player. What do you want from me? But anyway, this move is of notable importance because this is a key part of the physical rotation in Sin Devil Trigger mode. When you are in Devil Trigger mode, charging this to full can basically fill the entirety of the Judgment Cut in point stacks. This will get you all the way to 300 if you have enough orbs to consume when you use it in Devil Trigger mode. We'll go over that once we get to it. We're almost to Devil Trigger mode. I promise. We're getting there. Last notable attack in the Beowulf equipment is going to be the actual orb itself. So if we have Beowulf equipped and we ping the yellow orb, Vergil goes into the rapid spin kicks and ends with a small launcher, and you will note that this builds half a core passive gauge if you have 3 Devil Soul Orbs to consume when you use it. If you have less than 3 orbs, it will build less gauge depending on the number of orbs consumed when you use it. So if you do this twice, this is going to consume a total of 6 of the white orbs, and you will get Ultimate online and be able to go into Devil Trigger mode. So the last thing to note about the Beowulf gauntlets that I forgot about is that for the uppercut, this also has an extension like the other attacks. So if you go into this and then mash the basic attack button afterwards, Vergil will immediately go into the lunar phase and you can continue your combo from there. So just something to keep in mind if you are utilizing the charged uppercut attack. So that is the entirety of the weapons. There are a couple more things that I want to talk about here real quick before we go into Devil Trigger mode that Vergil always has available. So as mentioned prior, the Netherworld arms, aka the Cub for Vergil, is very unique in that you will always have access to 1 Cub skill even if you do not have a Cub equipped. So even if you don't have the Mirage Blade Cub, you will be able to use some of these skills. So I'm going to go ahead and reset since I've already got orbs built up, and it's going to mess with my steez here on showing you what I want to show you. But when you ping the Cub button, even if there's no charges, you do not need charges to do this, but if you ping the Cub button, you will see Vergil fires the summon swords. You can do this infinitely. You are allowed to do this non-stop. It does true slash damage, and you can do it to your heart's content. There is no cooldown or resource for this. So, if you have an easy way to mash your Cub button while you are doing other things, there is absolutely nothing to stop you from just spamming this ad nauseum while you do your other combos. If you need to use this to juggle an enemy because they got knocked away from one of your skills, go ahead. No, keep them juggled. You can do this as much as you want. Now, If you do have the actual Cub equipped, just like normal PGR Cubs, building up the 6 charges by consuming orbs will grant you access to various Cub skills. The unique thing about Vergil's Cub, and I believe Dante's as well, is that there are multiple active skills you can trigger based on how you use the Cub button. So I'm going to go ahead and just build up some orbs here by spamming the Beowulf skill. We see now I have a full charge of the Cub online. So there are 4 different attacks, and it's based on how you use the button. So if you are standing at neutral, not moving, and you tap the Cub button with a charge active, you will get the sword rain. Swords fall down, they stun the enemy, do a chunk of damage. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If we do another 6 orbs, get a charge online, and this time, if we are moving when we tap the Cub button, we summon the summoned swords next to Vergil. They have a slight delay, and then they all fire in succession at the enemy, doing a pretty notable chunk of damage, especially if you have the skill upgraded. So that is the second option we have available. The next one we can do is with a Cub online. If we are at neutral and we hold the Cub button down, we get Vergil's summoned swords. Iconic. If you've played Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you are having nightmares right now, but you can do this with a Cub charge. These will persist for a set number of hits per blade. After a certain number of hits, that blade will disappear, and you'll see as more and more hits count from each blade, they eventually dissipate until all of the blades are finally gone. This lasts for a very long time, and if you are looking to do some extra stylish stuff with your juggles and keep combos going, you can utilize this to great effect, and of course you can still go ahead and ping if you want to. This will cancel the animation, so I don't recommend pinging the base skill if you have the summon swords going, but it is an option available to you. I don't have enough orbs, so I'm going to go ahead and reset here real quick. All right, one more time. Spam 2 things of the Beowulf. All right, and our last option is if you are in motion while you hold the Cub button, the summon swords go on to the enemy. These will remain here until you hit the Cub button again. Whenever you decide to actually let that rip, they will stab inward and launch the enemy. So 4 separate skills available out of the Cub. These drastically increase your options for doing stylish extensions on your combos, for doing cool setups, all sorts of fun things you can do with the Cub. I definitely encourage you to experiment with the Cub skills if you have the resources to roll it and have it equipped on Vergil. It adds a lot of style and a lot of fun aspects to the overall combo ability of the character, and they feel really fun to play with. The last thing, and the most important core skill that Vergil has in his base kit, is probably the coolest inclusion I have ever seen in this game, hands down. And that is, these devs know how important Devil May Cry is. It has inspired them. It has clearly been a love letter that has been made in this game countless times over the years. There have been so many DMC references in Punishing Gray Raven since its inception, and they did not miss a beat. They know that a key part of Devil May Cry is that the taunt is not just a taunt, it's a useful tool. In Devil May Cry, it helps you build Devil Trigger Gauge. Doesn't do that in PGR, although I wish it did. That would be sick. But the taunt is a hidden input. If you click on the core passive gauge, Vergil will summon the single summon sword, spin it around on his fingertip, and juggle the enemy. You can also do this if you are on you're playing on controller or you have mouse and keyboard buttons bound. You can do this by doing the skip battle story button. For me, this is the back button on my controller. But there it is. You get to taunt. You get the full-on taunt. You get to use it in your juggles. You get to make the enemy look silly. I am so happy they put this in. This is so cool. It's so badass. I cannot explain how cool it is that they went out of the way to put this detail in. This has never been a thing in PGR. We have never had any mechanic of any type whatsoever that involves literally clicking on your core passive gauge. That has never been a thing ever. This is listed in his move list. It's not truly a hidden input, but the fact that it's tied to a completely different input that has never been used in this game is really awesome, and I just love that they added this Easter egg in. It's so cool, and I absolutely expect all of you recording cool combo videos and styling on bosses, doing Trial of Simulacrum, to incorporate this into the combo, because, I mean, Why wouldn't you? It's rad. Anyway, that is the base of all of Vergil's weapons in his base human form. Now we need to talk about Devil Trigger mode, because obviously that is going to be a key part of not only the rotations, but getting you to some really, really sick options for styling with. All right, so let's talk about Sin Devil Trigger, getting into Vergil's ultimate form. So, as mentioned prior, we will need to build up the core passive gauge to maximum to put Sin Devil Trigger online. Plenty of ways to do this. I'll go over the most efficient ones when we get to the rotations. But once you have a full core passive gauge, you can activate Sin Devil Trigger at any time, be it on the ground or in the air. If you are on the ground, you will get the cinematic animation, Matrix will proc, and we will go into Sin Devil Trigger mode. Now, you will notice that the core passive gauge will slowly drain over time. This indicates how long Vergil has to stay in his devil form. Once this gauge expires, we are going to go back to human form, and that's that. You go back to your normal move set, all your move properties go back to being the same. Pretty straightforward. While Vergil is in Sin Devil Trigger form, we get increases to movement, increase to all stats, increase to damage, and unique properties on multiple different moves. Something that is important to note is that Vergil will not build or create new Devil Soul Orbs while in Sin Devil Trigger mode. There are very specific skills that if you use them during Matrix will generate a few orbs, but for the most part, when you are in Devil form, you cannot generate more white orbs. What you have is what you get. Again, there are exceptions. We'll talk about what those mean in the rotations. But in general, just know that whatever you have on the dock for when you go into Devil form, that's all you get to play with. But let's go ahead and talk about the other stuff that happens in Devil Trigger mode. So let me get back in. So you will notice that in Devil Trigger mode, we have our doppelgangers. So the Shadow Demon will follow us around, mimic our movements, do the exact same attacks we do, and tack on damage as we do our moves in Devil Trigger mode. Pretty straightforward option there. If you have the evolution passive to increase the damage of the doppelganger, it only gets better. But that is a guaranteed core aspect of going into Devil Trigger form. The doppelganger will always be there no matter what. So next, if we go back in again, you will note that like our basic attack strings change and certain things get added hits, get added damage, but we get some unique mechanics. For example, with the Yamato, you can chain the rapid slash as long as you can keep hitting the button. This is infinite. You get to do this as long as you want. If you're doing rotations, you'll never do it. It doesn't serve any purpose because it doesn't build any stacks of the judgment cut points, and it doesn't actually do very much damage. But if you need to style for a little bit and make some time, that is a great way to do it. It's the unique aspect that the Yamato gets while you are in Sin Devil Trigger mode. So while we're talking about the Yamato, let's continue going through everything that it has on deck while we are in this mode. So once again, go in, going to activate. So in addition to the ability to infinitely chain the rapid slash, now when we go into Devil Trigger mode, you're going to notice the basic attack string builds up the judgment cut points. So you see here, just by doing 3 hits, we already have 180 built up. The other aspect is you still have your launches. You can still do air combos, all that stuff. You can still do plunge attacks, helm splitter, all that good mess. All available in the Devil Trigger mode. They're just slightly enhanced, going to do more damage because we have a massive stat boost going on, and the doppelganger is going to copy our movements. So, but the most unique aspect of the Yamato when you are in Devil Trigger form is that if we go in, activate, if you go into your basic attack string and then hold down basic attack, Vergil will do multiple perfect judgment cuts over and over again until he is out of orbs. Each perfect judgment cut you do by holding down the attack button while in devil form is going to consume 3 of the Devil Soul Orbs. So those are going to be eaten up very, very, very quickly. This is important to note for the rotations because you really want to micromanage your Devil Soul Orbs, and if you accidentally burn a bunch of them by holding down the button too long and getting a bunch of perfect judgment cuts, that's not going to be great for Vergil. So something to keep in mind for the actual rotation optimization aspect. If you're styling and you just want to hit them with perfect judgment cuts over and over again, use your orbs. Why not? It's cool. It's right there. It's available to use. It is a good time. So those are the main notable difference for the Yamato when you're in Sin Devil Trigger form, being able to infinitely chain the rapid slash, and then being able to hold basic for the perfect judgment cuts. That's really the only things that change for the Yamato. So let's go ahead and talk about the Mirage Edge. The Mirage Edge in Devil Trigger mode is very important for Vergil. This is a key part of the Ultima slash rotation. So if we go ahead, activate the mode, just like with the Yamato, the basic attack string will build up judgment cut points. And just like the Yamato with the rapid slash, you can chain the million stab infinitely. It will slowly drain your orbs, but unlike the perfect judgment cuts, these only drain one orb at a time, so you can maintain the million stab for a very, very long time in Devil Trigger mode. You can do this by mashing basic attack long enough to get into it via the normal string, or just like in the normal mode, let me get back in, aspect of Devil Trigger being a timed mechanic here. So let me get back in, back Devil Trigger mode, put the Mirage Edge on. We can also just go into the dodge and immediately go into million stab and just spam, build up those stacks. This is going to be a key aspect of the Ultima slash rotation. So getting used to using the million stab to build up some more judgment cut in points is going to be very, very important. Outside of this change, everything else for the Mirage Edge is effectively identical. Round trip works exactly the same. The air string with the single air dash works exactly the same. Helm splitter works exactly the same. Mirage Edge is almost entirely unchanged while in Sin Devil Trigger form. The only main thing is the fact that you can build the judgment cut stacks with the basic attack and the million stab, and then being able to chain million stab for as long as you have white orbs to keep pinging. You don't have to manually ping these, by the way. Just doing million stab does it automatically. There is no extra input or anything. Same thing for the perfect judgment cut with the Yamato. You don't have to input anything special. Just holding the button will automatically consume the orbs for you. So that's the Mirage Edge while we're in Devil Trigger form. Let's go ahead and lastly talk about Beowulf. So I'll bring Vergil in, we do the slash, we do the rapid slash, get into Devil Trigger form. So the Beowulf, pretty much same thing, has the same attacks. You can charge whatever you want for extra hits. The basic attacks will build the judgment cut in points, just like the other ones. The most important one is the hold jump. If you charge this to finality, you will see right there, it will consume a boatload of orbs, and you get to the full 300 stacks immediately. This is the key component of the physical rotation. It is effectively getting into Devil Trigger mode with the Beowulf equipped, and you just immediately charge this to maximum. So, just real quick, because it's so easy and so straightforward to do, I'm just going to show you the physical rotation. So, okay, well, I was going to show you the physical rotation real quick, but the Clage Classic happened, and I suddenly had to cough. So, for what I believe is the third straight guide, there is now a weird transition because I am bad at hitting my cough button. Go figure. Anyway, back to what I was going to show you, because the physical rotation is so straightforward, and to highlight just how good the charge jump button is in Sin Devil Trigger form. So, we spam the yellow orb twice. We activate Devil Trigger. We immediately hold jump. Charge this thing to finality. 300 stacks. Done. That's it. We can ult. And since we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the ultimate. So, once you have built up enough for the ultimate to go online, almost every single attack of every single type will build enough signature energy to get you to Judgment Cut in. The most iconic move in the entirety of Vergil's kit. Once this is online, you need to hold the ultimate button. You cannot tap while you are in Devil Trigger mode. So once you have Judgment Cut online, it can only come online after you've gone in the Devil Trigger mode. You will have to activate Sin Devil Trigger at least once to get to Judgment Cut in. You cannot build it up organically without going into Devil Trigger mode. But even if Sin Devil trigger mode has expired. You've run out of core passive gauge and Vergil goes back to human form. You can still cast Judgment Cut End. You do it by holding ultimate. So if we hold ultimate,
You shall die.
the classic pose, the shatter, all the Judgment Cut stacks are expelled and used to increase the damage of the ultimate itself. And Vergil goes back to base form if he was in Devil Trigger form. And something of very important note, Vergil will always re-equip the Yamato when going into Judgment Cut End. This is really, really notable for certain rotations and just for your own combo routing and styling, that no matter what a weapon you have equipped, you will re-equip the Yamato to do Judgment Cut End. But just like every other aspect, you can switch the equip whenever you want. So, real quick, let's go ahead and go back into Devil Trigger mode. I'm going to go ahead and build up some stacks, build up signature energy, and now what I'm going to do is do Judgment Cut. I can swap equipment. I can swap equipment during the entire animation. So, just remember that when you do the ultimate, you're going to automatically be pushed back to the Yamato on the equip menu. If you intend to continue your combo off afterwards with the Mirage Edge or the Beowulf Gauntlet, just swap during the time stop. Perfectly available to do. Super easy. It's probably the single most important thing to keep in mind for your potential combo extensions and just for keeping track of your equipment easily. So, the last thing I want to mention about Judgment Cut End, the obvious thing being that ideally you want to do Judgment Cut End while you're still in Devil Trigger mode. For rotations, so for the physical rotation, for the Ultima / rotation, we are going to want to get this online and cast our ultimate before we are out of Devil Trigger mode. This is going to increase the damage because we still have all the stat buffs, we still have the extra damage, and we have the doppelgangers. So doing this prior to Devil Trigger ending is very important for increasing your damage if you're meta chasing. If you are doing the physical rotation, if you are doing the Ultima / rotation, you'll want to make sure you ult before you run out of Devil Trigger. But like I showed you, if you run out, doesn't matter. Vergil can still do it in human form. And in a brilliant move on Kuro's part, and again, another thing I have to applaud for just such a minimal, minor detail that is going to matter to a lot of people, is that Vergil has a unique aspect with his ultimate. Unlike any other character prior, if you go into the menu and look at Vergil's ultimate, the Sin Devil Trigger, and of course, Judgment Cut End, if you go down to this button here, Vergil actually has a swap skill. Now, if you read these, they are basically identical. There is almost no change whatsoever. However, this secondary skill has a unique option. If you select the second option here, you can exit Sin Devil Trigger at any time by tapping Ultimate. So if you have some really cool combo string in mind where you want to get into Sin Devil Trigger, but you don't want to finish a combo while still in Devil form. Let's say you want to do something where you land, go into the Taunt, spin the Summon Sword around on Vergil's finger, and then go into Judgment Cut as human Vergil. This allows you to do that. Tapping Ultimate will just switch him back to human form, but it will not spend your ultimate gauge. It won't spend your signature energy. So you'll be able to still keep Judgment Cut online and save it for whenever you want to use it later in your combo. So very, very minor detail. For meta purposes, you will never ever use this. There is absolutely no reason to exit Devil Trigger form. That's just an automatic damage loss. But for styling and doing cool stuff and showing off in Trial Simulacrum, this is a incredibly awesome little addition that they did not need to do. There is absolutely no need for them to do this. But like I said, Kuro knows Devil May Cry. They know their audience and they knew exactly what they needed to do to make this pop. And that little extra bit is so cool. I think that is just a really, really awesome aspect of this whole thing. So with that said, let me get back into the training mode and let's kind of wrap up the combat explanation with a few more tips and tricks, and then I will actually get into optimizations and rotations. All right, so to wrap up the combat demonstration and kind of tie everything together for Vergil's kit, in totality with this character, there's really only one kind of complicated thing you need to learn to manage, and that's just the equipment swapping aspect. If you can get comfortable with swapping equipment on the fly, utilizing animations to swap your equipment and create your own combo routes, this option effectively is your combo building flying castle. You get to do literally whatever the hell you want with any piece of equipment once you get comfortable with swapping the equipments on the fly and learning how to utilize each individual weapon's moveset, just like you would if you were actually playing Devil May Cry. What a coincidence. It's almost like the devs knew what they were doing or something. Can you tell I really like what they did with these characters? Anyway, the freeform ability on this is just so key. It's what makes playing these characters feel like playing Devil May Cry characters, and I frankly could not be happier with their implementation of this. It's easy to forget that Punishing Gray Raven is a mobile game. This game started as a mobile game with no PC client. You can still play this on mobile. Some of the best players in the world still play this on mobile. I don't know what kind of robot devil hands they have installed to make it work, but they do it, and it's incredibly impressive. But the fact that you can play a fully fleshed out Devil May Cry character and go nuts with it and do the same kind of combos and strings and ideas that would let you get to a triple S style meter in Devil May Cry itself while playing within the confines of the Punishing Gray Raven engine is nothing short of a masterpiece. This is so impressive in every way, shape, and form that I could easily add another 30 minutes to this probably feature-length film guide gushing about how well they managed to implement this. But for the rest of it, if you are worried about the actual meta chase aspect of playing Vergil, if you want to learn how to do the physical and Ultima / rotations, we're going to touch on that next. Basically, the only thing you need to add in to addition to being comfortable with the equipment swaps is just utilizing your orbs properly. And if you've been playing PGR for any notable amount of time, you know that orb management is the name of the game in pretty much every character ever made who sees field time. So knowing how to utilize the orbs, knowing how to quickly build judgment cut stacks is going to be the key to getting the most out of Vergil, getting the most out of his rotations, and going from there. But at the end of the day, I am finally done explaining to you the most complex kit this game has ever seen for a single character. This is a lot. I know this was super long. I'm sure some of you fell asleep in the middle of it, and I totally understand. But if you are new to the game and you are trying to learn more, you're trying to get better with the combat, you're trying to understand the limitations of the engine, please note, this training mode is not just for me to make videos and show you demonstrations with. This is for you to practice. Training mode is awesome. Again, I'm a fighting game player. Training mode is your best friend. Use this mode often and whenever you want to come up with new stuff. The ability to practice and get execution built into your hands and to get ideas for combo routes, this whole mode is worth its weight in gold, and there are multiple ways to do it. You can do it with the dummy that never attacks or does anything. You can turn this into an actual enemy that will fight you and will do attacks, allowing you to do dodges and proc matrix and all that fun stuff. So if you are a new player and you haven't been using training mode, pick it up. It will help. It will help you learn the game, not just to do cool stuff with Vergil and Dante, but if you decide you want to actually start learning, hyper optimized rotations, learning how to score high in Warzone and in Pain Cage, training mode will help you with that immensely. Do not ignore this mode. It is so useful. I literally could not make these videos without it. It would just flat out be impossible, and what I could make would look like absolute garbage. So, now with the combat demonstration out of the way, for those of you who've been waiting to get a little sweaty with it, to get into the meta optimizations, we're going to go over the physical rotation first, and then I will do what is effectively the Ultima / team guide in the middle of this guide, because for some reason I'm convinced that making near 2-hour videos is a good way to get people to watch this channel. I guess it hasn't not worked. Anyway, see you in the rotation section. All right, so let's talk about Vergil's physical rotation. If you are looking at the chapter section of this obnoxiously long guide, you probably noticed this section's rather short, especially for a rotation explanation. There's two main reasons for that. The first and foremost is that Vergil's physical damage output is extremely mediocre. From my testing, Vergil cannot even outpace a modestly invested Bianca Stigmata, who is one of our most outdated attackers at this point. She was the first Gen 2 attacker, and she outpaces Vergil even at like double S with her signature weapon. So, you should only be using Vergil in physical Warzone if you literally do not have another physical attacker. If you do not have Bianca Stigmata or you didn't roll Selena Pianissimo, then Vergil is your best option for physical Warzone for the time being. He's very budget. He does not excel at physical damage. This character truly has all of his kit built around being good at the Ultima / elemental effect, not physical damage. But if you're a new player, you're just starting out, Vergil may very well be your only physical attacker. So I still have a rotation here that I will teach you to be able to learn, and it is brain dead easy. That is the other reason this part of the guide is so short. This is about as simple as it possibly gets for a rotation. So just like my other guides, what I'm going to do is go through individual parts of the rotation, explain why we're doing what we're doing and how to get through the steps. Then I will let the full rotation play out in real time, annotate it, and put the annotations off to the side so you have those available for practice. I don't think you're going to need that for this rotation. It really is that simple, but let's go through it anyway. So just like every physical rotation, we're going to start with Alisa as the starter. She comes in, uses her Yellow Awakening Orb to launch herself at the enemy. This gets Han Ying's QTE online and then allows us to go ahead and swap into Vergil. So Vergil's going to swap in. First thing we're going to do is immediately equip the Beowulf Gauntlet. As we mentioned during the combat demo, Beowulf is the only of Vergil's weapons that does exclusively physical damage, so we want it equipped for the entire time. From here, the rest of the rotation is about as simple as it gets. We're going to spam a yellow orb ping. We're going to spam a second yellow orb ping. That gets our core passive gauge full. It gets Devil Trigger online, so we immediately pop our first ult and go into Send Devil Trigger. From here, also easy as it gets. All we're going to do is we're going to start holding jump immediately, and we're going to charge it to the maximum. So we start charging the uppercut. As soon as you see the Beowulf Gauntlet flash and you see it glow yellow and the lightning starts coming off it, you are clear to release the jump button. Let the full uppercut play out. And as you see down here, we have 300 Judgment Cut endpoints built from the single uppercut. From there, that's it. We just ultimate. We go into Judgment Cut. It finishes. Vergil swaps out. You go to your next attacker. That's it. That's the entire physical rotation. It is that simple. You do it once, you swap Vergil off, and you keep the train moving from there. So, from the top with the annotations, the physical rotation for Vergil. Alisa comes in, yellow orb, bring Vergil in, swap to Beowulf, yellow orb, second yellow orb, ult 1. Charge the jump button until you see the maximum, release, ult 2. Ult 2 animation plays out. Swap Vergil off. That's it. There is your physical rotation for Vergil. Again, unless you have no other option or you are a brand new player who just started with Devil May Cry and Vergil is your only physical attacker, use either Bianca Stigmata or ideally if you rolled Selena, she maintains her spot on the physical team. But now let's get into the real core of this guide, which is going to be the Ultima / rotation. All right, so before we go into the actual Ultima / rotation in the step-by-step, I want to talk about the actual Ultima / mechanic, how it works, and this kind of is going to be the de facto Ultima / guide on the channel. So for those of you who've been waiting for the Ultima / guide, here you go. We're doing it live along with the rotation. So how Ultima / works is very similar to the other elemental fixes in that you have to build up stacks and then activate the actual effect to get the damage out of it. There's some notable differences with Ultima / compared to other elemental effects. The biggest one being that unlike, say, Glaciation and Plasma Blade, where we build up the effect, proc it, and then we have a limited time window to get our actual Plasma Blade or Glaciation damage in, Ultima / persists. You build up the stacks, and then you activate it by using certain skills which will make the Ultima / effect activate. Then when certain skills proc Ultima / damage, it will use one of the stacks available to boost that exact attack with a 400% damage increase. So there are multiple ways to build the Ultima / stacks. Both Vergil and Han Ying can build them and use them. So we're going to use a combination of their abilities to build the stacks, keep them flowing for the entire rotation, and then use them on our biggest hitting moves to get maximum damage. So the easiest way for Vergil to build Ultima / stacks is to, first off, equip the Mirage Edge. The Mirage Edge is going to be the majority of our Ultima / damage, but we will be using the Yamato during the rotation as well. But the easiest way Vergil has to build stacks is to ping the blue orb and then go into the charge. So if we do this, hold the button and release it, you'll see we've built up 3 stacks of Ultima Slash. How this actually works is we're building up a resource called Sharp Reserve. Sharp Reserve can go all the way up to 999 points. Every 100 points of Sharp Reserve equals 1 stack of Ultima Slash. Now, just because you have the stacks of Ultima Slash does not mean Ultima Slash is active. The unique thing about Vergil here is that the release of the charge basic after you ping the blue orb both builds stacks based on how long you hold it down. As I mentioned in the combat demo, each level is an increase in the amount of Sharp Reserve. So just releasing it immediately will be 100 Sharp Reserve, aka 1 stack. Charging to level 1 will be 3 Sharp Reserve. Charging to level 2 will be 4 stacks. Charging to the max level will be 6 stacks. So one more time, we're at 3 right now. If I go into the blue orb and then I hold this down for the absolute maximum, you'll see we get 6 more stacks, aka 600 Sharp Reserve. The thing that's unique is that this attack, the slash wave that you do after releasing hold basic, not only builds the Sharp Reserve, it activates Ultima Slash. It is also the activator for the mechanic. When you see the icon, the sword icon here glowing, that is how you know Ultima Slash is active and the stacks are ready to be consumed by various attacks. So, Vergil consumes these stacks by going into Devil Trigger mode and using various attacks. The main one is going to be using the Mirage Edge, doing basic attacks to build up our Judgment Cut stacks, and then going into the Million Stab and burning some of these stacks, and then using our ultimate, which will also burn another stack. So if we activate Double Trigger, I do some basics, and then go into the Million Stab, you'll see we use these, and then when I proc ult, another one builds up, the ult goes off, and whatever Ultima stacks remain are still available for when we swap to Han Ying. If you reach 0 stacks, the effect automatically deactivates. Ideally, we want to avoid that. There may be situations in Warzone, depending on how invested your Han Ying is, if you do run out of stacks at various points. But ideally, once you get the Ultima Slash stacks going, you want to keep this active for basically the duration of the entire Warzone run. Now, again, this is persistent. This will not degrade over time. If you've got 4 stacks, you have full stacks, and if the Ultima Slash is active, it is active until you use one of the skills that procs the Ultima Slash proc, uses a stack, and increases the damage of that particular attack. One more thing we need to point out before we go into the actual rotation. So if I bring Vergil back on, we're going to go ahead and do our blue ping, charge, and release. From here, we're going to go ahead, do our ultimate, go into the Million Stabs. Now, if you notice down here, we've run out of stacks because I burned them all by doing Million Stab. Every chain of the Million Stab will use another stack. So paying attention to how many you have is very important. Ideally, you're going to want to ultimate before you run out of stacks so that you keep the Ultima Slash effect active. But if you'll notice, we have a number now in the middle of the sword after doing those stacks and using them. Every time you use an Ultima Slash stack, it will build up True Will. This is the True Will mechanic I talked about during the combat explanation. True will increase the damage of Judgment Cut in when you use it as Vergil. That is the only way to consume True Will. Vergil is the only one who can utilize it. Han Ying's ultimates will not burn True Will, so you won't lose this if you build up True Will with Han Ying by using stacks of Ultima Slash. When Vergil ultimates, all stacks of True Will are used, and they increase the damage on his ultimate based on how many stacks are available. This is important because Han Ying builds these but doesn't use them. So one of the main core components of getting the most out of Ultima Slash is building up these True Will stacks, getting it to a fairly high number, and then when we finally get to Judgment Cut, Vergil will burn all those stacks, and increase the damage on his ultimate notably. So just because Han Ying can't use the True Will doesn't mean she can't build it. And that is why the rotation that I'm about to show you works the way it does. But this rotation is tricky. I'm not going to lie to you. Just like all the elemental effect rotations, it's going to take a lot of practice, and you're going to have to get a feel based on your investment. I will say right now, if you want to do the Ultima / rotation well, if you want it to go smoothly and keep things going, you're going to want Han Ying bare minimum with deadline timing. She just absolutely needs it. She really cannot get away without it. She needs deadline timing to be able to ping her blue orbs in dagger mode and build stacks effectively, while also using them to build True Will and saving enough stacks of Ultima / to pass on to Vergil. So having her with deadline timing is almost a must. And if your Han Ying is double S3, that will make a notable difference in how many of the blue orb into regular dagger attacks you can chain together while she is in her dagger attack mode. And I'll go over that during the rotation. Just note that the rotations for the Ultima / team do not change at rank except for one notable thing, and that is going to be Alisa. So, if your Han Ying is below triple S, that means she does not have the passive buff where the swap cooldown is lowered by 3 seconds. If you are below triple S with Han Ying, when you get to Alisa in the rotation, what you're going to do is do her normal physical rotation. So you hold basic, spam through all the orbs, spam the 3 ping, spam the 1 ping, let the chain and the barrel go off, and ult. Then you will swap back to your next attacker after this. This will be what you do every single time with Alisa when it is her turn in the rotation if your Han Ying is below triple S. If your Han Ying is at triple S or above, there is going to be much less time for Alisa to come on and do her rotation. So instead, what we're going to do at triple S and above is Alisa's just going to do her glaciation rotation. So we're going to do the hold dodge, spam 2 dodges, and then hold basic after you fill the gauge. If your Alisa is below triple S, it's going to take 4 dodges. If your Alisa is at triple S or above, it'll take 3 total. And then hold the basic to do the big fire shot. From there, you immediately swap to Vergil because he'll be off cooldown. What we'll basically do with this is leave Alisa's ultimate on basically untouched, so that when she comes in the second time, we'll be able to immediately ult with her. And I'll show you that in the rotation. That is the only difference between triple S and not triple S, and it only matters for Han Ying. That's the only thing that changes what you're doing with Alisa. Otherwise, this rotation is universal. The big difference will be how many blue 3 pings into tap ultimates you can do with Han Ying, and you're gonna have to play around with it based on your Han Ying's investment and how many orbs you have available. But I'll show you the general gist of the rotation, why it works the way it does, and that should allow you to adjust for your own invested team. So let me get the rotation video up. We'll go through it step by step, and then I'll do the annotations. Okay, so the actual Ultima / rotation is very involved. There are a lot of moving parts here. Before I get started breaking down each individual piece and doing what we always do, going through step by step and then doing the full speed at annotations and such, I did spend a lot of time trying to come up with my own Ultima / rotations, and I just was not satisfied with anything I was able to come up with of my own accord. I think it's a combination of Ultima / being a rather finicky mechanic as you try to learn it, and the other part being I'm still tired. I am still very, very drained from Evo, and the brain hamster just was not mathing out anything that made a lot of sense or felt super cohesive. So I did some research online, and the rotation I'm going to show you is almost basically exactly the same as Tomi Vasis's. I think Tomi makes really, really, really good elemental effect rotations. I think their rotations are incredibly sound. They make use of all the little pieces of the kit and try and get the most out of it. I am not ever going to tell you a rotation is 100% gospel and can't be improved, especially with characters this new, and especially with an elemental effect as finicky as Ultima /, but I will be linking Tomi's channel in the description. They make a ton of great Punishing Grey Raven content. It is one of the channels I went to when I was first learning the game. definitely worth checking out, and I have to give them special shout outs because without them, I would have never gotten a good rotation for you all. And I want to make sure we have something that's cohesive, something that makes sense, and helps you understand how to get the most out of Ultima Slash because, well, that's what Vergil is here for. He is here to make Ultima Slash go. So let's go through this rotation piece by piece. The general idea is we're going to do a thing that's very similar to the Glaciation rotation in that our first run through with Vergil, who's going to be our main damage dealer in this aspect, is going to be doing a quick ultimate and then setting him up to do an ultimate immediately the next time he comes on the field. So essentially the first rotation will be extremely truncated for Vergil. We'll do a single ult, we'll get the Ultima Slash mechanic started, and then he will swap off to Han Ying, who will do the job of building the stacks, getting Ultima Slash persistent, and then from then on forward, every time Vergil comes back into the rotation, he's going to be able to do a double ultimate rotation while maintaining the Ultima Slash mechanic. So that is the general concept of what we're going to do. Again, the only thing different about this rotation for various ranks, I'm not going to record a double S and triple S. It would be incredibly redundant. This guide's going to be 2 hours long. We don't need to do this twice. But just remember that your Alisa part of the rotation will change depending on if your Han Ying is triple S or below triple S. Below triple S, do her normal physical rotation. Hold basic, ping the orbs, ping the 3-ping, ping a 1-ping, the chain and the big single arrow attack go off, you ult, then you transfer her out. If you are at triple S or above for Han Ying, you do the Glaciation rotation. I'll show it to you when we get to it, but you hold dodge, 2 dodges, hold basic, and then we store her ultimate for her second rotation on the field. So let's go through this piece by piece. There is a lot, and I'll highlight all the tricky parts and stuff that can go wrong. So just as always, Alisa comes in, uses her yellow orb, brings Vergil close to the enemy who comes in. We ping our Han Ying QTE to get the tank skill online and going. And Vergil's going to come in and we're immediately going to do another red ping. So this gets us half our gauge. And then we're going to cancel into the basic attack for the rapid slashes. This will fill up the rest of the core passive gauge. And now ultimate is online. So we are going to go ahead and do ultimate. Go into Sin Devil trigger mode. From here, you're going to do basic attack 3 times, and then you're going to hold basic to do exactly 1 judgment cut. 1 judgment cut will leave you with more than enough orbs to do what we need to do. It will build a nice amount of judgment cut stacks on the stack marker, and we get a quick, fast ultimate with plenty of damage, and our amplifier bonus still active. So 3 basics, 1 judgment cut, immediately go into ultimate, and then as ultimate casts, we call our QTEs. Use your Cub if you have it. Out of Judgment Cut, what we're going to do is we're going to swap equipment to the Mirage Edge, so tap over to the blue, have it ready. Then you're going to do a blue ping, send out the two dimension slashes. From here, we hold basic to charge the Ultima Slash mechanic. You want to charge this to level 1, so ideally you charge it, get the first flash so that it's all the way to the first level, and that should get you 3 stacks of Ultima Slash. So we release. As you can see here, we get our 3 Ultima Slash stacks. As soon as you see the projectile come out, you can swap to Han Ying and bring her on the field. Make sure that the big arc slash comes out and Vergil gets the core passive gauge. If you swap him out too early, he's not going to have a full core passive gauge. His ultimate will not be online. That will brick the rotation. Make sure this comes out before you swap to Han Ying. For Han Ying, pretty straightforward. We do the same rotation we would do in any physical or Ultima Slash Warzone. Han Ying comes in, we cancel the bring in animation with the dodge, and then we're going to do 3 red pings, 1 yellow ping, the green ping. This will bring on her attack mode ultimate, and we go into ultimate mode. Now, here is where things are very different from Han Ying's normal physical rotation. What we are going to do is we are going to alternate between using a blue 3 ping and then tapping ultimate to use some of the core passive gauge. We're going to do this 3 times. So a blue 3 ping, tap ultimate, a blue 3 ping, tap ultimate, 1 more blue 3 ping, tap ultimate. That should exhaust all of your blue orbs. And after that 3rd tap ultimate, we're going to tap basic attack to do the Ultima Slash stab attack, and that will refill some orb source. So blue ping into tap ult, blue ping again, tap ult, blue ping again, tap ult, and then after the 3rd tap ult, You tap basic attack. You should only have a couple blue orbs left at this point. And now we do the basic attack, which does the stab. This replenishes our blue orbs. So now this time we're going to alternate blue 3 pings and tap ult 2 times. So the first time we do 3 reps. The second time we do 2 reps. So back and forth, back and forth. We are now exhausted all our orbs by doing blue 3 ping, tap ult, blue 3 ping, tap ult. So we tap basic again. The stab happens. This regenerates some more orbs for us. From here, we're going to do 1 more blue 3 ping, and then you hold ult. By then, that will give you enough energy to let ult rip, and then we will be able to get Han Ying's ultimate off and then transfer over to Alisa. So, the thing to keep in mind, if your Han Ying is below SS3, you're going to have to alternate how often you're using the blue 3 pings versus the tap ultimate. Basically, what you should just be striving to do, run yourself out of blue orbs, tap ultimate, then do basic attack and make sure you do the stab. Now, this is a lot more finicky in an actual Warzone run because the enemy isn't going to be a training dummy just standing there doing nothing. You're going to have the area of effect tax going off. You're going to have enemies moving and trying to attack you. If it is the multiple small enemy Warzone, you're going to have to keep track of any enemies that might escape. The other important thing is to make sure you do not try to activate the stab attack by tapping basic after tapping ultimate if the wave just clears. If you do this and the wave clears, the stab is going to whiff and you will not replenish your blue orbs, and that will cause a big issue for the rotation. So make sure there is an enemy to stab on the field. But after this, we've now done our first set of alternating blue ping and tap ultimate, our second reps of doing blue ping tap ultimate. After we do this one, we do 1 blue 3 ping. As you'll see, ultimate lights up because now we have built enough signature energy for the gauge to be fully full. And from here, we just have to hold ultimate. That will trigger the ultimate. Han Ying goes off, and we swap to Alisa. Again, adjust Alisa's rotation based on if your Han Ying is SS or below SS. Mine is at SS, so I'm going to do the glaciation rotation. I'm going to have time to hold dodge, activate the glaciation thing. Then I'm going to do 2 dodges. And from here, I hold basic because my Alisa is SS. If your Alisa is SS, but you have a SS Han Ying and you do this rotation, remember you're going to need 3 dodges after the initial hold dodge, not 2. Just keep that in mind. So we hold basic, and now Alisa's ultimate is online. Vergil is back off cooldown. We bring him in immediately. We do not cast Alisa's ult. We're saving that for the second run of rotations. From here, the rotations will be the same for the rest of the Warzone run. So Vergil's second rotation, Han Ying's second rotation, and Alisa's second rotation will all be the same going forward. So this is where things really matter for Vergil. So we bring Vergil in. We have ultimate online immediately. We bring him in, and we immediately go into Sin Devil Trigger. From here, we're going to do the exact same thing we did at the start of the first rotation. We're going to do basic 3 times. In Sin Devil Trigger mode with the Yamato equipped, we're going to hold basic for 1 enhanced judgment cut. That will be enough to get us to our ultimate. We immediately hold ultimate to do judgment cut end. Make sure as this animation is going off, you swap your equipment back to the Mirage Edge because remember, you will be on the Yamato from coming in and doing judgment cut. So we swap back to the Mirage Edge. From here, we do the blue ping into hold basic. We get our charges. You're only going to see 1 charge here because I've maxed out the Ultima slash attack. But again, just for good habit and practices, make sure you're charging to level 1 so you're getting maximum stacks. Because if your Han Ying is below SS3, you're likely going to have less Ultima slash stacks when you get to this point in the rotation. So just keep that in mind. You still want to charge to level 1 before you release. That gives us our full core passive gauge. That gives us Devil Trigger again. So we activate Devil Trigger again. From here, we're going to do a very similar string to what we did with the Yamato, but this time we're going to keep the Mirage Edge on because remember, the Mirage Edge actually does higher Ultima slash damage than the Yamato. So in this case, what I like to do is do 2 basics, and then I like to dodge cancel the second basic into the million stab. So we dodge cancel, we go into the million stab. You just hold million stab. You can either hold basic or you can mash basic, whatever you prefer. But you do million stab until ultimate comes online. Once ultimate comes online, you'll see we have just enough of the amplifier buff bonus left up here to get our second ultimate to go off while that's still active. So we cast our second ultimate, we do Judgment Cut in one more time, and now before we swap Vergil off the field, we once again re-equip the Mirage Edge, because remember, doing the ultimate equips Yamato. So re-equip the Mirage Edge during the ultimate animation, do a blue ping, charge for the level 3 or for the level 1 charge to get our stacks. Ultimate's back online. We can now swap Vergil off and Han Ying comes back. The only difference for Han Ying's second ultimate second rotation is that instead of doing 3 red pings into a yellow ping, you can now do the dodge cancel to cancel the animation and then just do 2 yellow pings into the green ping. This puts you at ultimate. From here, we do the exact same rotation we did on the first Ultima Slash rotation. So we're going to do blue 3 ping, tap ultimate. That happens 3 times. So 3 reps of that. Then we do basic attack to get to the stab. So blue, tap, blue, tap, blue, tap, stab. Replenishes our orbs. Now we do 2 reps of blue into tap, blue into tap. So blue, tap, hit basic, stab again, replenishes our orbs. 1 more blue 3 ping, and then hold ultimate. Call your QTEs. And then we swap to Alisa, who has ultimate already built up from the prior run. If you are doing the triple S rotation, if you are doing the below triple S for Han Ying rotation, you will just start your physical rotation again. So you'll come in, hold basic, spam the orbs, spam the chain attack and the big shot, then do her ultimate, then swap to Vergil. In my case, or if you're at triple S with Han Ying, you do the glaciation rotation. So the ultimate's already up. We cast the ultimate. Then we hold dodge again. Spam 2 dodges, spam the basic attack, and that will get Vergil back online and ready to go. And that's it. From here, the rotation repeats until the stage is over. The entire Ultima Slash rotation is complete. So from here on out, you just repeat that exact set of rotations I showed you for round 2. Do it until you run out of time, and hopefully you have a whole lot of dead waves behind you for that Warzone run. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's going to take practice, but I honestly think once you get the flow down for this rotation, I think it's actually easier than either the plasma beam or the glaciation rotations for my salt. Having the Ultima Slash not be on a dedicated timer, I think really makes the flexibility of this a little bit better. Your biggest goal is just making sure you always have ultimate to start each rotation for Vergil. That's key, because getting those 2 ultimates in a single rotation after we prep through the first rotation is how we're really going to maximize damage and really get the big burst damage going off. So this is going to be a lot of annotating. There is a lot to say. There's a lot for me to put on the screen. It's probably going to take me 2 hours to edit it, but I've already committed to the bit. We're going the whole distance, so here we go. The Ultima Slash rotation in real time with annotations. Be there for you to practice. Let's rock. Alisa uses her yellow orb. Bring in Vergil. Ping red. Basic attack. Cast ult. 3 basic attacks. Hold basic for 1 judgment cut. Judgment cut in ult. Switch to the blue. Blue ping. Hold charge to level 1. Swap to Han Ying. 3 red pings, yellow ping, ultimate. Blue 3 ping, tap. Blue 3 ping, tap. Blue 3 ping, tap. Basic attack. Blue 3 ping, tap. Blue 3 ping, tap. Basic attack. Blue 3 ping, hold ultimate. Ultimate goes off. Alisa comes in. Do your Alisa rotation. Whichever one relates to you, swap back to Vergil. 3 basic attacks after the ultimate. Hold judgment cut, end. Swap back to the Mirage Edge. Hold, release the charge. Ultimate again. 2 basics, dodge cancel, hold the million stab. Do judgment cut, end. Swap back to the Mirage Edge again. Blue ping, hold basic, release the charge, swap to Han Ying. Yellow ping, green ping, ultimate. Blue 3 ping, tap. Blue 3 ping, tap. Blue 3 ping, tap. Basic. Blue 3 ping, tap. Blue 3 ping, tap. Basic. Blue 3 ping, hold ultimate. Cast your QTEs. Swap to Alisa. Immediately ultimate. If you're doing the triple S. If you're not, do the physical rotation. Finish Alisa's rotation. Swap back to Vergil. Cast ultimate. Repeat. That's it. There's the whole entire Ultima Slash rotation. I know I didn't keep up with it with my vocal annotations. They'll be off to the side. You get the idea. That's what the in-depth explanation is for. But that is the Ultima slash guide in its entirety. This is what you'll use. Again, experiment, adjust based on your Hanying's investment. Vergil's investment will not matter. The only thing that's going to be important is that if you don't have deadline timing, if you do not have the 6-star weapon and do not have deadline timing, instead of using the one perfect judgment cut at the end of the Yamato section of the rotations, just keep mashing basic attack until ultimate comes up and go from there. You don't want to spin those extra orbs because you might run low on your first rotation. So just keep that in mind. That'll be the only thing that really alters anything about Vergil's rotations. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what investments he's at, as long as you have your one copy and have him to double S so he gets his 3 orbs when he's brought on the field, you're good to go. So there we go. Ultima slash rotation done. We can finally move on to the outro of this guide. Oh my God, it's going to be 2 hours. It's going to be over 2 hours. I actually did it. I am so sorry, y'all. Let's wrap this up. All right, y'all, there it is. The complete guide to Vergil, along with the entire Ultima slash team guide and rotation. If my estimates are right, as I record this, we took 2 hours. That is 2 hours of your life you just aren't getting back, and I sincerely apologize for that. However, as you can see, Kuro did not miss. This character has been lovingly recreated with incredible thought and care, and playing Vergil in PGR honestly just feels awesome. It feels amazing. His freeform ability, the unique weapon equip system, is going to allow players complete freedom in sharing their creativity when it comes to combos, styling, and showing off PGR's combat at its highest level. In addition, the Ultima slash team is extra real now, and Vergil rockets its potential into the stratosphere. This means not only do we get a full-fledged Vergil experience to play with to our heart's content, show off cool combos, show off styling, we get a character that's going to remain meta-relevant for years to come. They are not replacing the Ultima slash attacker anytime soon. I can promise you that. And we are effectively at the end of the Global Sync project. There will be one more double patch after this, if I'm guessing right, and then we're done. We're back on a normal schedule. Vergil's going to be around for a long time carrying the Ultima slash team. So we are getting a really awesome package here, all things considered. I knew this guide was going to be super long. I knew it was going to be really involved, but I even underestimated myself this time. I know a full-length feature film guide is not for everyone, and if all you care about is learning how to maximize the optimizations for the Ultima slash team and figure out the rotation, by all means, feel free to skip directly to that part. Save yourself 90 minutes. I do not blame you, and I totally understand it. Long, verbose, deep explanations on characters in a gacha game is not for everyone. But if you've been on this channel for a while now, you know how I work, you know I feel it's worth my time, effort, and all of the long-winded explanations that go into these guides to help people fully understand these characters, to fully understand the engine they're playing in, and fully understand the limits that can be reached if you're willing to explore and try things with these very, very complex characters. If you did endure this whole diatribe I did about Vergil and his place in PGR history, well, thank you. Sincerely, thank you. This guide has definitely been a labor of love. It has taken a lot of energy that I probably don't fully have back after just being done with EVO event season, but I hope I did this justice, and I hope it helped you learn more about Vergil and how to play him, and all the options you have available to really show off what he can do in this engine. I know this doesn't need to be this damn long, but this is what I do, this is how I work, and as always, I always appreciate all the feedback and support. I really appreciate you all being patient while I finished up Event Crunch. This was a brutal, brutal season of Event Crunch for me, but I got through it, and now we can kind of return back to normal. Uploads should be much more regular again. I'll be able to make stuff that isn't just guides and talk about some stuff I've been wanting to talk about with PGR for a while now, and I have more than a few things on the docket that I have ready to make for this patch and the upcoming future patches and the end of the Global Sync program, for that matter. So if you want to do all the YouTube junk, as always, you know, like, comment, subscribe. It's always appreciated. It's never necessary.
And for now, I'm going to give myself a very short breather, and then I go right back to the lab because, well, Dante's not going to be any less complex. So here we go again. Give me a few days. It's probably going to take a bit. As always, thank you so much. I appreciate you all. I hope you enjoyed the guide. If you have any questions, if anything doesn't make sense, you want some clarification, or you just want some input or suggestions on building Vergil or learning more about Ultima Slash or anything in between, as always, drop those down below. I try to answer all the comments as often as I can. But for now, I need a break, y'all. Thank you as always. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.